Is this the ultimate promise of crypto? Is this why it exists?
This is why it exists. And it's so interesting listening to your last segment, because what this technology does is actually solve a tremendous number of problems. And what we're doing with the UNHCR and have been doing for the last year and a half now is really demonstrating that this technology has a purpose. And the aid is, it gets into the hands of the refugees within 3 minutes of downloading the wallet and receiving the text message from the UN. And then they can cash it out at a MoneyGram location. They can hold it. They can put it in their bank account. It actually really has solved a tremendous amount of problems just in terms of aid distribution. I just heard the head of the UNHCR talk yesterday about the fact that it saved them $12 million to be able to use these digital components of their work. So it's a pretty great piece of technology that can be leveraged.
I think an important part of this daisy chain here, from going from crypto to MoneyGram to account, is how the crypto is used in the form of stablecoins in particular. And if you think about the way that the crypto industry is transforming, at what juncture is the stablecoin industry becoming more important than the regular way Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto community as we had previously talked about it?
Well, you got to remember that the rails are the technology are the rails. And so those tokens in every one of these pieces of, in every one of these chains are the secret sauce, sort of the way that keeps everything tight, that makes sure it ensures that there's security and stability in the network. But in terms of really transacting, we've always believed that tokenization of fiat and just tokenization of real world assets is the way to sort of make this all work together. You really have to interoperate with the traditional financial infrastructure to be able to reach people where their needs are. And so this is a great example of it. And you're right, it demonstrates that there's like such growth and maturity in the industry. And sometimes we don't always hear about that part.
Denelle, help us understand the last mile of delivery for these refugees here. What happens when they do get the monies in stablecoin? What is the ultimate way that they're able to use that in a local currency?
Yeah, I mean, the perfect world someday is that they'll just be able to leverage these stable coins down at merchants. And this is something that actually the Ukraine is working on itself, which it's called the Transparent Network, and they're working on being able to deliver it that way. But right now, what happens is the refugee receives a text message from the UNHCR, says you're eligible to receive aid. That refugee then downloads the wallet that is recommended by the UNHCR. And that once they put in their KYC information, so they know your customers, so all their details, they then have the aid right there in their wallet. They can make some choices at that point. They can say, okay, I'm just going to hold this right now because I don't want to go out. It's not safe for me to go out, or it's not the right time. Or they can actually go down to a MoneyGram location and they cash out into the local currency. They can cash out into local currency no matter where they are. So if they're in Poland, for example, versus Ukraine, they can still cash out there into Polish currency. Or they can, with MoneyGram, that there's an easy way for them to just put it directly into their bank account if they have a bank account. So it's converting right now into the local fiat, either in the bank account or into true fiat at MoneyGram. And then the refugee gets to be able to leverage it for whatever they choose. But there are many wallets out there that allow end users to be able to pay bills, to be able to make merchant payments to some locations. So there's a lot of it's not just promise, there's opportunity here for this to progress further and further.
Denelle, to the extent that you can expand your efforts more with the help of government organizations, the government itself, what would you need to see from the U.S. government? Have you been in talks to expand these efforts?
Yeah, so much of what you guys spoke about in just the last segment in terms of thinking about what legislation domestically is important. Obviously, the FIT Act, which was mentioned before, is something that's really important. Creating just real stability with respect to this technology. You know, the United States has always been at the forefront of technology and really had this hands-off approach to regulation, regulating outcomes instead of the tech stack. And over the last few years, we've seen, unfortunately, regulation that's focused on regulating the tech stack, maybe through the SEC and through forms of investigation. And that's not what we need to see. We need to see real stability, meaning that we need to create stablecoin legislation, which is already there, just needs to be passed and gone through. Stablecoin legislation that says this is actually a really great way for us to be able to leverage the US dollar in the United States as well as other regions. So we need to see leadership here in the United States.